So, on today's show, I'm going to teach you the dream team that you need to get your first or next Novation deal. Now, the beauty of the Novation Dream Team is that it's not going to cost you any money upfront to get them, right? You don't need to bring them on a salary. You don't need to bring them on employees. You don't have to worry about, some long and complicated legal stuff here. But you are going to get world-class team members who are going to work for you pretty much for free until you have a real estate deal under contract. And so I am so excited to teach you about this because this business, a Novation deal, can be super easy and super profitable if you have the right team. And if you are brand new listening to this and you don't know what a Novation deal is, you've got to know what's happening in today's market. Right now, the market has changed a little bit in terms of buyers, and we are basically locking up contracts with motivated sellers. And in the past, many times we've sold to cash buyers who have bought and fixed and flipped the property or rented them, right? But now we are actually now selling them to retail buyers, right? The benefit of selling to a retail buyer is that they are going to live in it and they're not looking to make a profit. And what does that mean? It means that we can pay the seller a little bit more for the property sometimes, but also we could sell that property for a lot more and make 2 to 3 times as much as if we were to sell it to a cash buyer. And that is the beauty of the Novation. Now, Novations are super simple. Sometimes they feel complicated, but if you've got a dream team, which is what I'm going to tell you, pretty much your team will tell you everything that you need to know. And I want to reiterate, this is going to cost you pretty much no money up front. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to remove your self-limiting beliefs, remove those mental barriers, and listen to what I'm telling you, because your dream team will help you so much and do 90% of the work. Your life is going to change if you listen to what I'm telling you. So the first person that you need to find, in my experience, if you're going to be doing Novation deals, is a good real estate broker. Okay. Why do you need a broker? Because a broker is going to list your properties on the multiple listing service once you lock it up from a seller. Okay. Now that is imperative because that is where retail buyers live. They live on the multiple listing service. If you've ever looked on Redfin or Zillow and you saw property there, it was most likely listed by a real estate broker. And because of that, it appeared on Redfin or Zillow. So when you get a property, you are going to have to list it with a real estate broker. Now, this real estate broker, not an agent, not a realtor, but a real estate broker. Okay. Do not deviate from this. You're also looking for a broker that's from an independent firm. What do I mean by that? Not RE/MAX, not Keller Williams, not Compass, not EXP, okay? Not any of these big, not Coldwell Banker. You're looking for a no-name broker, okay? Typically, usually, it's like the solopreneur broker, like Joe Smith Brokerage. Why? I do this, and I recommend this because you don't want someone with a boss. Okay. And if they work at if a broker works at one of the bigger houses, they have a boss. They have all kinds of rules they have to follow, and they're not going to think outside the box. So ignore this advice at your own peril. You're looking for a broker from an independent firm, not an agent that works for a broker, not an agent that works for the big houses, someone who is a broker themselves. Very, very, very important. Now, where do you find these people? You could find them from your local real estate groups, right? They call them RIAs, real estate investment clubs or associations. You could also find them in Facebook groups for retail agents or retail buyers or a real estate investing group. So for example, in San Diego, they have one called San Diego Real Estate Friends. In Florida, I've seen Florida Real Estate Investor Association. But you want to Google, hey, I need a broker to help me list some of my deals. Right? And they will reach out to you, and then I want you to interview them. But most importantly, the reason why you need a broker is typically they will help you with property values. And when you are listing with an agent, you want to know what properties are selling for in the market. Now, for me, I like to use my last episode. I talked about, using Redfin and looking to see what things are selling for. But if you have a house that you are trying to sell to a retail buyer, it's going to really, really help if you got a good broker and say, hey, what would this sell for on the open market? And send them the address. And if they're worth their salt, if they're any good, they'll say, oh, that's going to sell for $200 all day long. Okay, 200,000. How do they know that? Because they know, hey, 3.2s in this neighborhood sell for $200,000. I saw one last week sell. Here's the comparable sale. Boom. Why not lean on an expert instead of becoming an expert yourself? The great thing about brokers is that you do not need to pay them upfront. You don't need to pay them hourly. You could be completely broke, know nothing about the market, and a broker will help you in the hopes of being able to do business with you. Okay, you don't need resources. You need to be resourceful. Okay, so go out and find a broker today. That's my favorite place. The other place that you could go is a title company, right? So if you've ever done business, ask your title company for some good brokers and they can tell you. Now, leading into that, the second person that you need on your dream team is a good title, closing, escrow company. Okay, you need someone who's used to working with investors and getting deals closed. You don't want someone who's like so rigid, right? You want someone who does, by the way, assignments, concurrent closing, and is not going to have trouble with your novations. How do you know if you found a good title company? Tell them, okay, if you call them and say, hey, I'm going to do novation deals, most companies don't know what novation deals is, but you could say, hey, part of our business model is to go on a contract, and I get paid on the closing statement as a buyout of equitable interest, right? I usually get paid, and I'll bring those deals into the company where typically there's a buyer and seller, and I appear as a buyout of equitable interest on the seller side of the closing statement. Okay, if they don't know what that is, move on. Okay, but basically you're going to say, hey, I buy houses. Sometimes I'll buy a house or go under contract, and I will step out of the agreement, and I'll connect the buyer and seller together, and I'll get paid on the closing statement as a buyout of equitable interest. Can you handle those transactions, right? If they don't know what that is, or they don't know someone in your office who doesn't know what that is, or they're refusing or giving you a hard time about that, find a new title company. Now, what kind of title company do you want? You want someone who's excited to work with you, who's hungry for your business. They say, wow, come on in. We'd love to meet you. Yeah, bring in your deals. Excited. If it feels like you're pulling teeth and they're suspicious and weird and just reluctant, move on. Get the hell out of there and find someone who is excited about working with you. You have too many options. Notice I said you can get a referral from a broker for a good title company, and I'm looking for a broker typically who's done some investment transaction themselves, or you can find out about the real estate investment clubs. You also could get a referral from, you can get a referral for a title company from your broker, or you could call your title company and get a referral for a good broker who's very comfortable investing and working with investors. See how that works? So now your team is building your team. Oh, I'm loving this. Okay. And remember this, they should be excited. Okay. Next, you want a good notary on your team. Okay, what is a notary, by the way? You might not know what a notary is. You should, but if you don't, that's okay, right? A notary is someone who is licensed by your local, and what I mean by you should, if you've been, I meant that if you've been doing business in real estate, you've probably experienced what a notary is, right? If you're brand new, you shouldn't, right? So what I meant is that if you've been doing business, you should. But if you don't know, a notary is someone who just verifies a signature is actually a signature by the person who is supposed to sign, right? So it makes sure that the person actually signing is the person who's supposed to be actually signing. So what they do is, they'll bring you a document, they'll have you sign it, but they'll check your ID and make sure you're the person at the ID. And then they sign another document and says, hey, I saw this person's ID. I saw him sign the document. This is the person who was supposed to sign this, XYZ. Okay, well, why do you need this? Well, I like this for a couple of reasons. Number one is that notaries, typically they are used to traveling, right? So they're used to printing out documents. They're used to having someone sign, and then they're used to faxing those back or scanning them back and then sending them to a title company. And so just the fact that they print and scan and sign and send and travel, oh, I love it, right? And so this is a person who I can bring onto my team for very, very, very little money to do that. So when are you going to need a notary for a novation deal? Well, for me, if I'm doing deals virtually, meaning that I'm not meeting a seller, I love for a notary to go and meet that seller in person, print out the agreement and have them sign it. It just adds so much more legitimacy. The seller's got an appointment. The seller's just so much more comfortable. Plus, I know the seller who's signing is actually the seller. Okay, so key. The other thing, though, is that typically in most states, I like to record my agreements or evidence of my agreements. Now, in some states, you do not need a seller's signature on a document to have it notarized. You can just sign your own, have it notarized, and record it. But in some states, the seller's signature has to be on there. So if you're in one of those states and you have a purchase agreement and it's notarized and you record that, okay, that is now on public records. And now you've secured your deal. What that means is the seller can't now sell that property to somebody else without you signing off. This protects your deal. Okay, so I'm going to recommend that you do that on the deals that you lock up on a contract, assuming you're only going to use it to enforce your contract. Okay, not for any other reason or for any nefarious purposes, but only enforcing to what you agreed to. Now, by the way, why do we do that? By the way, is that when you go under contract to purchase a deal with a seller, and recording, what that does is it lets the world know that you have a deal with a seller. And it says, hello, hey, just so you know, Todd has a deal with a seller here, contract, and you better not interfere, right? Because now this is public record and you've seen this. The cool part about that is if anyone tries to steal your deal, after you've locked it up, that's going to pop up and the title company should not, and most times will not close, right? And they'll call you and be like, hey, what's this? The seller's trying to sell to somebody else and you have this agreement. So I recommend that you've got a notary for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just use it to get my contract signed. They're like a salesperson who can get my deal signed without me having to go to the house. I also recommend it because the deal, if it's notarized, then I could record that agreement, which I'm going to recommend. Right. And so now you make that on public record. And so, by the way, it makes it easier to get paid at the end of the deal. Basically, you sign off and then you get a big fat check for doing so when you bring in your end buyer. And I've talked a lot about that on different episodes. Okay. But the last thing is that sometimes we like to get a limited power of attorney too. Sometimes a seller lets us handle pretty much the whole transaction. And what I mean by this is you want to use this for good purposes, only to get the seller what you promised them, but they'll let you basically handle the transaction from front to back to them, even sign on their behalf to close the deal, actually close it at the title company if you have power of attorney. And some sellers will give you that. And I'm going to recommend that if you can get it, those need to be notarized almost in every state that I know of. So you want a notary who's going to prepare those agreements if you're going to use that. So get them on your team. So where do you find notaries? Go to 123notary.com and find one who's got a lot of great reviews. I recommend get to know them, tell them what you do, tell them your expectations, right? I want my stuff sent back to me. I want it scanned. I want it FedEx to me. I want it sent to the title company. And I want someone who'll bill me and I can mail you the check or pay you by Venmo. Next is you want a good lawyer on your team. Now, I always recommend having a good real estate lawyer on your team. Have them review your agreements, right? No matter who you do. I mean, we have a students in our Novation bootcamp that we use, and we provide agreements. But I always recommend to have your own attorney review them. But here's the one key thing that I don't talk about is that if you are doing a limited power of attorney, and again, this enables us to even sign on the seller's behalf to get them what we promised them, is you can actually do that. But the title companies actually like to see an actual third party. Okay, so typically your attorney or the seller's attorney, but I usually like to have an attorney lined up that is actually the attorney to handle this, right? And so that they can get a lot of paperwork done and they can sign on the seller's behalf to close the deal. Okay, so you want a good attorney already lined up, and it's always good to have them in your back pocket if you have a question, right? So you want somebody, usually when you call attorneys for, quick 10, 15, 20-minute questions, they're not going to bill you. If you're going to do them, here's a little trick. Sometimes in some states, these lawyers, they also do closings in their office, right? So if you have a lawyer who can also double as the closing agent, right, the title and the escrow, right, they'll do a lot of free legal work for you if you're bringing the closing work there. Okay, so I'll repeat that. They'll usually give you a lot of free legal work if you're bringing the closings to their office. Now, the last thing here that I'm going to recommend, and this is optional, You can also get referrals as a good hauling person or like a handyman person. And what do I mean by hauling? People who like clean out furniture or garbage or anything that's left behind, or someone who could just do random fix-it. So sometimes on our Novation deals, again, we're selling to a retail buyer, and buyers like stuff that's retail ready. So they want a clean house, right? They don't want junk all over the place, and sometimes when you sell to a retail buyer, that buyer's lender will require something small to be fixed. Maybe it's a piece of dry rot on the outside that's like $300. Sometimes I'd say about 20% of our deals, we'll go into a property, we'll clean it up, we'll paint it. Maybe we'll remove some trash or fix that dry rot. And so we need a small handyman person to handle that before we close, and we'll be required to, front that. So you want that. Typically, though, what's great is sometimes those people will let you actually be paid or pay them on the closing statement. So you don't even have to come out of pocket. It'll actually come out of your profit at the closing. Little trick here, though, if you've got a good broker, your broker probably has a ton of those people, so you can actually let them run that entire process. And I'm telling you, if I had to say which was the most important that you want to line up, you really, really, really want to find that broker, because they pretty much can refer you to everybody else that I mentioned on that list. So a quick review: if you're going to do Novation deals, and you should be in this market, it's one of the strategies that is so hot, and you're going to need it if you really want to thrive. The great thing is that most of these people are going to work for free upfront until your deal closes. Find a good broker. Number one, absolutely, bar none. You're looking for a broker, not a real estate agent, and you're looking for the smaller, independent firms. Okay, they're also going to sell your properties. They could also tell you what properties are worth. Next is a very good title company. You're looking for an investor-friendly title company, someone who's used to doing wholesale deals, assignments, concurrent closings, and talk to them about your Novation deals. They should be super excited to do that. If there's resistance or they're giving you a hard time or they seem negative, move on. There are so many that will absolutely love you. The next one is you want a good notary, right? I explained that a little bit. You want them to get your contract signed, but it also gives you the ability to record your agreements. If you use the power of attorney for only good purposes, please, right? Get them to, you're going to need those notarized, right? And they also could be the face of your company if you're locking up deals virtually. Okay, a good notary, go to 123notary.com. You want a good lawyer, right, who can handle your paperwork. Sometimes they actually own closing companies like the title companies. They can handle all of that. And that is great. And last, you want a hauling person who, the hauling people, they will help clean out your properties, or a handyman person who will do that. And you can get that referral from your broker. That's if you decide to do work. And by the way, you don't have to do it. That is like a bonus optional. Okay, optional thing here. So if you want to, by the way, meet up with me and spend some time with me on Facebook sometimes, check out the Wholesaling Inc. Facebook group. I spend a lot of time in there. So if you go into Facebook and write Wholesaling Inc. Facebook group, go in there, become a member, reach out to me. When you join the group, hit @Todd Toback, or you could also find me on Instagram. I would love to chat with you, find out what's going on in your business, where you need help, and I will talk to you on the next episode.